With finals being over and my first full year in combat robotics being done, I decided to put this video together. It's just all of my Bigfoot videos kind of clumped together. So we can take a look at all at once for those that missed the early ones and see both where I've come as a YouTube channel in the past year and also how far Bigfoot has came as a robot in the past year. And I apologize in advance how bad the earlier videos are. I guess I'll just start with the intro of Bigfoot. Bigfoot is my antweight robot. There was a meetup on Saturday. It wasn't an actual tournament, so we just got some fights in. Since this is Bigfoot's first few fights, not plastic, so this is a TPU, not the plastic format where it's just your standard 3D printed fabric. Our 3D printed plastics. It's against a two-wheeled horizontal spinner versus the Fox. We apparently fight them a lot. They're in Wisconsin, so we're probably going to run into them a lot.
3, 2, 1, go! Alright, so in the lower half, we've got Bigfoot.
Ooh, nice pin.
Getting a whole block. We got a little bit of mobility. Now keep an eye on those top robots. They've got that chicken tent with. It's going to show very big in this whole arena.
That was a consistent problem with the forks. The forks get caught up.
Alright, so Jimmy just slicing away at those forks.
Another issue is
in the
that
lower arena. Looks like Bigfoot largely controls the front of this match.
Ooh, watch out.
Yeah, that was there's a double-decker arena, so there's actually a fight going up in the top. That blade from up top came down.
I think maybe taking off forks. This fork's not going to work in this configuration.
4, 3, 2, 1. Alright, so Jimmy has scored a knockout. They can,
so there's knockout up top. Yeah, so it turns out that with the nylon and TPU,
it does.
there's a tighter tolerance than the PETG.
Too far to the side, Bigfoot. Bigfoot is around the tire, but doesn't seem to be hindering them a whole lot.
Yeah, forks I think are going to be a no-go.
Yeah, I need to stop backing into it.
Alright, we're better as a two-wheel drive, it's fine.
It's a really heated match in the bottom section. Really heated.
Nice pen.
So I like the shape of Bigfoot, but I need to make some changes to those forks I'd like into.
Let's get another pen in.
Bigfoot still hanging on. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's a fight.
Yeah, we ended up losing that one, I think, to judge's decision. We just took too much damage and we didn't control the fight enough. If we go back, one thing that I want to change, if we go to just the beginning here.
Go! Alright, so the lower half, we've got...
We had them pinned right here, but the problem is with the ESC I'm using, so there's 4 motors on Bigfoot for drive, and I'm not able to put out enough current to each one because they're running parallel. So I'm going to change the ESC so I can get more current to go to the wheels, because right here,
ooh, nice pin.
I'm trying to move him into the wall, but I just don't have enough current going to the wheels, so I'm not getting enough torque.
The whole
so he just sort of broke out of it. There's other times, and a lot of times if you go a little bit further in.
Ooh, watch out.
Let's go back. Wait, that's not there we go. Yeah, a lot of our forks getting stuck up like that. When I went to moving nylon and TPU, there's a lot tighter of tolerances, or the holes are smaller than with the PETG, so it's too tight on the screw, so it doesn't fall to the ground like it should. So that's in addition to me changing the tolerance or the holes on that, I'm going to try to switch to metal forks because in this fight and in future fights, I basically lose my forks almost every time.
Whoa, watch out.
I'm trying to double check how I lost my tire there.
Watch out.
That's another thing. During a lot of the plastic fights, I was able to sort of back into people and stop their weapon. If we go to the post more, like the photos, this is from this fight. This is actually cut all the way through on this thinner part, and it goes well past the bottom layer. And I need to stop backing into people unless I know their weapon is down. And I was also going to add more material if I can to this back side, add more layers. Yeah, and also I need to get out of the habit of backing into people because I lost the tire there. And then later, yeah, this is real bad.
Yeah,
the forks
maybe
up like
taking
that.
off forks. This fork's not going to work in this configuration.
I was almost glad when he took them off. But yeah, the adjustment to the forks, we're going to have metal forks, definitely. And we're going to change up some of the dimensions so they actually stay down to the ground. Fine. Okay. Yeah, that one I backed it.
Alright, your car has two-wheel drive, it's fine.
That's one good thing about about our bot is that this was well after the fight, so I didn't get an immediate picture. But these are press fit, so they come off easily. I do that so they're not like sort of stuck on their canted, so even if we get a damaged wheel, we can still drive. And that was a big driver behind it having 4 wheels instead of 2, is we can lose tires and still keep fighting. You can see on the front, I just wanted to show this. Obviously the forks broke. That's something that I'm going to fix with having them actually stay down by changing tolerances as well as getting metal forks. But the nice thing about TPU is like this didn't shatter at all, just cut. But they got a nice deep cut in there, but I'm surprised that they weren't able to cut through and end up getting to the flipper, so that was nice. We're gonna just move on to the next fight. Oh, I guess we started. Yeah, started late, but whatever. This was the bot that actually lost its weapon at the top.
Yeah.
I'm still getting. You can also tell that I'm still getting used to driving. I didn't have much stick time before I started.
That's hilarious.
40 seconds in. So a minute 20 seconds left for Bigfoot to try to rack up.
We just sort of did exactly what we
He was high centered. I don't think so.
Yeah, this fight we won more because of how they built their bot than me. And just ignore the fact that I'm stuck in the side in it going back and forth. I just really need to get used to driving with the 4 wheels. And so yeah, I'm definitely gonna have more stick time going into March. But overall, I'm trying to figure out why his weapon wasn't spinning up. I guess we're just smothering it. But yeah, he wasn't able to like turn around there. Pin there.
Yeah.
I was a little bit afraid there when he was upside down because of how exposed our flipper is on top. Turned out to be fine. We have yet to be punished for this. That's another thing about this event is we never got knocked out, and we weren't really didn't get damaged on the top. I did lose the flipper in the next 2 fights, which we'll take a look at. There was obviously not a damage photo because we didn't take it much damage. That is Bigfoot's first knockout though. This is I'm trying to remember the name of it. But this is a shuffler vert. It's hard to tell from this, but this was the cleanest looking bot at the event. I was pretty intimidated. Nice strategy of box rushing everybody with a spinning weapon. I was able to get underneath them, which is... But the fork's not staying on the ground. Kit took a couple of them with that. Still getting nice to grab in. Yeah, my forks just weren't getting underneath them. These are a shuffler, so this weighs 1.5 pounds instead of the 1 pound I weigh. I could really feel it. Oh, is this where I fucked up? There, see that? I thought I was underneath them. Because I was testing the waters. I'm like, oh, maybe I am underneath them. I was not underneath them. The only time I lost my flipper during this event was because of my own mistake. Yeah, I couldn't really do much. I didn't have a flipper. I didn't have my forks. I don't know how I ended up going backwards, but... I think during this one there was just so much debris from previous fights, and Bigfoot's so low to the ground and stuff.
Real free now.
I need to figure out why I keep spinning like that. I just sort of like rotate when I hit him.
About 10 seconds left, and Bigfoot, hang on. 5.
Yeah, I did a decent job of keeping my front two up, but without forks it didn't really matter. I need to figure out why I kept turning when I'd hit him. But yeah, comes back to the forks. He wasn't able to do that much damage. This is entirely my fault. We're planning on changing the forks like I mentioned. Yeah, I ended up backing into him once, but luckily we had the extra tires actually helped, so it didn't matter too much that we lost the tire. But yeah, I think when Joseph was talking about me having drive problems, it was just I was so low to the floor, and there was just so much debris. But if I back into them here, can't quite get to the flipper, so that was still pretty good. So that's promising. Let's just go into the fourth fight. It was attached to the front. It didn't really come up in any of the fights, but this last fight was a plastic fight against the Fox. They have a plastic spinner at this point, but we're made out of PETG, which is much more brittle than our main material.
No, you're not. I'm joining.
Drivers, ready to go?
2.
Alright, let's start this fight in 3, 2, 1, go!
Maybe we get the pin early, like I said. Lost some tires, and yeah, I should not have flipped into that. We need to double check what happened. Yeah, we ended up losing both our tires on that.
30 seconds in. Bigfoot might have
All right. Oh yeah, we kind of like the effectiveness of their weapon after that first exchange. But yeah, our forks keep getting stuck up. Real problem.
Too tired for that. Halfway through.
Yeah, additionally, I'm getting rid of. There's like a little hook on the fork that I'm getting rid of. But yeah, here I don't have a problem with backing into them because they're not spinning. But yeah, as you can keep seeing, we're pushing up against them, but we're not really able to. Just we're able to stop them, we're not able to push them back. Oh, there we go. Back. That was because we got them off their tires. Oh my god, this camera. Yep, I don't really care about the forks. They actually turned off here.
6, 10, 9, 8. To the robot side.
Oh.
Yeah. Yeah, technically.
Yeah, I want to rewatch that first exchange because I know how I lost my flipper by just looking. I'm trying to see how I lost my front two tires. Because I think they did it from the top, basically.
Alright, let's start this fight in 3, 2, 1, go!
So we're stuck. Flipping was just a bad idea. The tires, though. Okay, so they went down onto the first one. When I flipped them, they landed on the left tire. Oh, and I drove forward into them is when they took out the right one. But oh yeah, that was actually good. I'm glad I rewatched it because that was so chaotic the second time I should have not flipped into that. Honestly, the thing with the flipper, I should have kept the flipper up. I shouldn't have brought back down. The problem is when I came back down, not actually even going up. To go up, I shouldn't have gone back down, honestly. That is a real problem. We're just gonna start without audio because I forgot that it sounded like he was eating his mic at the beginning. We went against a two-wheeled horizontal that was plastic. So they weren't going to do too much damage to us, but they got lucky. You'll see. I wasn't too worried going into this fight because we've went against two-wheeled horizontals before. But as you can see, this is actually, I think, a rental. But they let him do it against full bots. That hit, got a pretty decent hit. Part of his blade immediately broke. I know I lose drive in one of my motor, like right there. Like I'm not even sure because it was working. It wasn't even a hit that had me lose drive in that motor. And not much is going to happen for the next 2 minutes. This is pretty much about it because unfortunately they didn't remove that wheel, so we just have a dead wheel because the gearbox stripped a gear. And that happens once again this same day, but this was, you can see also that I get life for a little bit, like the gear catches, I guess. And yeah, this was not a very exciting fight because they apparently don't have much control over their robot either. I think it's because the child controlling it. I end up winning anyways because nothing they do actually does anything, and we just sort of and since we took out their weapon. But yeah, this is not exactly a very exciting fight to watch. And I was really frustrated because I was trying to crab walk the best I can. There's not much to talk about because it just sort of, I need to get away from N20s as far as my motors. But that's going to be a whole redesign in order to do that because it's going to change a lot, the weight distribution. So there isn't much to talk about with this fight. So yeah, with that, once the timer's out, we're going to go on to the next one. So that was a first win. This next fight was against Weird Flex. This is Team YO, so this is like a ranked bot. Like we're talking like top 12 control bot, a wedge. So I know I'm gonna have to drive pretty well here going into it, but
All right, there we go. So Bigfoot, that brown robot,
Okay,
Weird
there
Flex,
we go.
that purple
That's
robot with the
captured.
bright eyes.
Yeah, so this
Driver's
fight
ready.
was, I was pretty oh god, there we go, it's loading. But yeah,
Thank you.
this is going to be a very drive heavy match.
All right, we're good to go. Let's begin in 3, 2, 1, fight. All right, the
Right,
two
I had a
control
bad
bots
turn
going at
there.
it. This is Bigfoot,
Get an
Weird
early
Flex.
pin.
So Bigfoot with that lifter, but maybe not quite the ground game as Weird Flex. Weird
Yeah,
Flex
not a
definitely
great
able to
start, but
outreach
I
them.
tend to come back pretty quick, getting that pin right there.
But the lifter of Bigfoot
Yeah, he was able to
should be
get
an
me on the
advantage.
side right at the
Yeah, using
beginning.
that to not only
I know it's
lift,
really
but also
turning
grapple with their
in one
opponent.
place can be kind of jerky.
A lot of fork locking in this match.
There's a lot of back and forth trying to get each other. I seem to be able to just barely get underneath them most of the time. But he really knows what he's doing
Just
here.
a very tight control battle. A lot of vying for position. There's a pin from Bigfoot. Now carrying them across the arena. Skillful
Yeah, I
bit of
wanted to get
driving
him
there.
in the pit. Getting a knockout would be huge. It's a pretty...
Halfway through, Bigfoot's starting to rack up the pins. So doing
So yeah, I was
a good job against
For the
such a
entire
fierce
first
control
half, I
bot
was in
as Weird Flex.
control. I
They tend to
had
do
mostly
very,
control.
very well in these competitions.
My forks are
And
kind
they've got a lot of experience doing well in
this.
this arena specifically.
But yeah, there's where he gets underneath the bottom, and we realize that the
Bigfoot
forks have too much movement.
Kind of
It's hard to
propped
tell
up on
from
their
this
own
angle,
forks.
but the forks are basically pointed downward and stuck in the
Weird
ground.
Flex,
He
nice
was
enough to
nice
free
and he
them.
got me
They don't want to
down.
win that
Could've-
way.
I
But
let me get
Bigfoot
counted out
definitely stumbling upon a
there.
design
I can't
flaw.
really. Yeah, he ends up sort of controlling the second half of the match, and he does
20
basically the
seconds
same
left.
thing, but against the wall. There's not really anything I can do to
Oh,
get out
and it's
of it.
happened again. Bigfoot propped up there. 10.
Yeah, he's nice, and he was really generous in
Time
getting
winding
us
down.
from that. And that's a
5,
fatal flaw that we'll have to
3.
make some major
2,
design changes for the
1.
rest of the
That's a
event.
match.
We ended up putting tape.
Well done. Good driving match from both
Ending
our
there is
competitors.
real rough.
This will go to our
We
judge.
actually somehow won that one, even though arguably we shouldn't have. But yeah, that was a rough match. Even though we won our first two wins, they didn't feel great. Honestly, the ones where I lost are much better to watch. But yeah, we drove good, but we had some fatal flaws in our design that,
And they will be
I mean,
against the forever
If we-
aggressive Nosferatu.
we would have won if we would have definitely won if we wouldn't have had them. We wouldn't have a conversation about it, but we barely won in spite of them. We won because of his generosity. But this is against a four-wheel vert.
All right.
He's a very aggressive driver. He's known for being aggressive.
Drivers ready?
And for being honest, how I designed Bigfoot definitely pays off in the
All
first
right,
half,
3,
but it isn't quite
2,
enough to secure
1,
the win.
go.
Spoiler alert.
All right.
Comes
Nosferatu
out
up
as
to speed.
aggressive. There's a lot of locking horns throughout the match.
Yeah,
It takes
Nos
him
chasing them
a good chunk
around.
of the match to
Bigfoot.
get it right.
Has a good
He
ground
ends up
game, though, so
bending a
good bit of
fork. It's hard
driving.
to
They're
tell
going to
from this
try
video,
to
but he ends up
stay
bending a
squared
fork
up,
pretty early
ideally
on,
with the side of
which makes it
Nosferatu.
difficult for us to really get under him.
Nosferatu, obviously, with a very, very powerful weapon, though, so Bigfoot's going to
That's
need to be
another
careful
thing
that they
I
don't
need to change at some
lose
point
the
is
forks
fork
on the front.
geometry, but since it's a CNC part,
Pushing
I had to order from
Nosferatu up
Suncut
against the
Send. I'm not
side.
super eager. But yeah, we're able to control
Well done.
him
Now
the
backing
first
them in
half the match.
to the corner.
even despite the bent
Nosferatu
fork.
chasing them pretty close to the pit.
I should have used his aggression to his advantage to try to get him in the pit. I think we could have done it, but
Just getting ready to cross the halfway point.
I think if I go against Jer again, I'm gonna try to use his aggression. There, he gets that hit
Good pop in the air
in.
there.
Puts us on our back
Oh,
foot.
Bigfoot's got to be careful driving backwards like that.
He gets the other hit.
Nosferatu all
I'm
over
not
them,
even
so they've
quite sure
found
how
a
he ends up
combo
getting
starting to
that first one,
capitalize.
but-
Bigfoot still seems functional.
But yeah,
Somewhere around the line, he stripped that gearbox, and we lose drive. Maybe if he wouldn't have stripped that gearbox,
Time is starting to wind down in this match. We've got about 30 seconds left. It is all
I also should have
Nosferatu.
Tried to get him to hit
Just
that wheel,
tearing
but maybe
away at
remove
the
it,
sides
we'd have
of
got drive
Bigfoot.
back.
Oh, bending
yeah.
up the
That's
top
how we
cover
ended
now.
up. The top plate's open up,
So
but
Bigfoot
that's
hurting
just
after
because
that.
It's a soft TPU plate, so the screws just pulled through. Didn't actually damage the
Nosferatu
plate.
getting kind of
I should've
excited.
used washers.
Got to be careful of that pit. 10 seconds left.
But yeah, we were able to go to a judge's decision. So
3.
I think
2,
I should have used
1.
his aggression against him.
Match
Knowing
over.
he's an aggressive driver instead of just playing as defensively trying to get him.
All right. We'll see what our judges think of that.
But yeah, that was a pretty fun fight. We didn't actually take that much damage. The base plate was cracked a little bit, but he didn't really. The base plate or the top plate being damaged, I think, looked worse than it actually was. At the end, I put my flipper up into his weapon, which was my own bad, but I was desperate and knew I was going to lose, but trying to get something in. This last fight is against Super Space Turtle.
All right, in the
another
arena,
highly ranked bot.
we have Super Space Turtle and Bigfoot. Drivers
Another
ready?
wedge from Team YO.
All right, let's begin the match in 3, 2,
It'll be
1,
pretty obvious why I end
go.
up losing. He is faster than us, and he is
Bigfoot
also
versus a turtle. Never a thought I
able to
would.
get under us there.
I thought I would consider.
He's faster than us. He can
One
push
might
us
say
around,
the
so it
tortoise and the
really
hairy.
is rough. Trying to see if there's a point where we actually
Good
go
pin from Super Space Turtle.
see who's actually lower, because he gets to the side of us a lot. Because he's so
Very similar
fucking fast.
wheels on both robots, but the
I'm not sure
drive
what I'm
power
supposed to do
difference
against a
is
robot that's
definitely
faster than me.
biased towards Super Space Turtle.
Because we don't really get, because he's able to push us around when we lock horns. This is the point where I'm trying to bait him to try to go
Both
after
robots
us,
know the danger of that
I know
pit,
I'm losing.
feeling each other out,
Oh.
seeing who goes for a move first.
Yeah, I'm trying to get it. This
Now
is
keep
where
an
I'm really
eye
trying to bait
on
him.
the lifter of Bigfoot. They can use that to maybe invert Super Space Turtle. We've seen that cause problems for them in the past.
I'm trying to play more by the pit because I know I'm losing, and it's the last match of the qualifying rounds. So here I am trying to bait him, trying to get him to run over us.
Bigfoot just trying to bait them in.
Doesn't quite work. He keeps getting underneath.
They don't have
us.
many options
He's
left in this
faster.
match.
There's not much
I don't know if
can
they've
do
won a
against this.
single exchange.
Yeah, control bots are not who we really want to be fighting with this.
10 seconds left.
Especially because he's a really good driver and he just faster and can push us. So a nightmare matchup, honestly.
And that's a match. Well done.
But yeah, that was the fight, or that was the 4 fights we got in. We were as middle of the pack as you can get. 34 bots. We were 17th. So literally we did not, we were middle. 0 point difference. We were as middle of the pack as it can go. So the 2 weeks after the Betz Botz event, towards the end of March. So I'm just going to get right to it. This is our first fight against ASMR, another Team YO bot. This is their first fight.
ASMR ready?
This bot.
All right, both squares are ready. Starting with some 3.
There are a lot of kinks to get out. They're a vertical spinner with big old wheels, so a lot of times they drove right over us.
ASMR using Bigfoot like a ramp.
They've really got a bite in us.
Finding a little bit of engagement there. ASMR, a very Yeti-esque bot.
Yeah, we're just kind of being conservative, just trying to control them. They're really hard to hold down, so it does make it kind of rough to getting underneath them is pretty easy. They're having a lot of drive issues, and battery issues actually.
Nice little boats.
A little bit of bite on us. We're sort of winning this whole time. We got folks keep getting stuck right there. Try to
Can they move?
I should have just waited. I want to get them.
Yeah, get him in the pit. Get him.
Oh,
Watch
there
out.
I high center myself.
Babe.
Yeah, I high centered myself on the pit under the lip there.
Yeah, they learned their lesson. They're not unsticking us again.
I don't even think they could have stuck us. Their battery was essentially dying. I could have sort of waited out. If we go back to like the moment right before, I turned to back away from them as they came to life, and I turned too far and backed into it. Go back a little. But yeah, I go there.
Yeah, get him in the pit.
Try to get him
Get
in
him.
the pit.
Watch out.
I basically turned around.
Babe.
You could actually see it more from. There's a clip from their perspective. You could kind of tell that it was more obvious from their side. Can I not? Oh, this is gonna let me. I can't skip right to the next one.
In 3, 2, 1.
This is against. So this is the first fight of the losers bracket.
Fight, robots, fight!
She usually has a
Bigfoot
smaller
stumbled through a
version
little
she
box
has.
rush.
This is the first.
Meanwhile, Lil Pacino's got its weapon motor revving up, trying to find the perfect time to strike. Bigfoot ain't having it right now.
Again, she has a lot of trouble getting a bite on us. It doesn't have as much control as you do. I haven't fought many drums at this point, so it's kind of worried about how that will turn out.
Nice.
Lil Pacino's doing a little self to the wall.
Yeah, she seems to have trouble with control.
Let's see if Bigfoot then carries Lil Pacino all around. Especially this weekend.
I'm generally pretty good at staying squared up on her, but my movements, I think it's pretty slow.
Weapon motor so rather strong, it just needs the perfect time to strike, because right now it's striking the wall.
15 seconds to pit. No, that is not an invitation to pit.
6 seconds left on the clock.
Being very careful.
Pit's about to open.
And the pit has been opened. Let's see.
Get cocky.
Tear it all around down to the pit. But first, Bigfoot's got a little
Release.
lead. Lil Pacino's yet to strike Bigfoot and flip it over a bit. Bigfoot, however, on the other hand, has got pin
Release.
on his mind right now. Let's see if carrying it to the pit would do.
Oh,
and a wheel.
It's okay. They're ablative.
Bigfoot with a pin and a wheel just came off. All right.
You're showing that we still have drive even with 3 wheels. Luckily the wheel came clean off. It's one good hit, but
In 3.
gotta rewatch that, see if there's anything I could have really done to avoid that. Because it's not a very good angle.
Oh, and
Yeah, she just sort of got underneath us somehow.
Oh, and a wheel.
Yeah, I think she got a bite
They're
on the
ablative.
corner of the bot.
Bigfoot with a pin and a wheel just came.
So, yeah, getting that So that was another fight we won.
Let's get ready for some more action in 3,
especially in this one too.
3, 1, fight, robots, fight!
This is a two-wheeler.
Here goes the weapon motor from Jeff, already a smack through on each other. Oh! The ramp! Having robots with a ramp is a pretty big advantage, especially when it has a horizontal spinner. It would pretty much knock itself across thanks to the ramp. But let's see if we can get any lifting from Bigfoot. Oh, one of the wheels from Bigfoot
Yeah, I
is
forgot we lost a wheel.
Yeah, they're
wheel
ablative.
number 1.
Yeah, I forgot how early we lost a wheel, but like we said, it doesn't really make much difference. Square up.
Jeff is really trying to do a little damage to Bigfoot.
Gotta keep her in the corner. Stay squared up.
Looks like we're not getting anything coming from the weapon motor from Jeff, but Bigfoot has done the pin.
Yeah, I never quite get a good flip
Let's see
on
if Jeff can rev up his weapon motor now. And we see Bigfoot do a little flip. And now the pin is open. Let's see what we can get from there. Little lift from Bigfoot's little
trying to
lifter.
keep the flipper out of the way. I was kind of stuck.
I figured.
I was aiming to go to the pin, but I think I have quite as much pushing power with two us and anyway, though, we got so much. Yeah.
8 seconds left on the clock. Bigfoot has definitely got a lot coming from the whole pin, but the fight is over.
Yeah, I just let the pin go at the end because you can only hold it like I believe 5 seconds, or 10 seconds, I can't remember. But yeah, that was an easy win, getting us into the 4th fight. This one will be our last fight. This one we're watching now. Another two-wheel horizontal. This one they had troubles driving and operating.
Release. Ooh, nice. Do it again.
I realized that I can just go around them.
Get him. Yeah, but can you do both? Nice.
Ooh, that one went towards my face.
So yeah, when they spin up the weapon, I just come behind him and push him over the wall. And he spins it down, trying to drives back, but it's too late. Yeah, this was a super interesting fight. I just took it super conservative. And we're mobile enough to get behind them when they're spinning.
Perfect. Oh, you took one of their eyeballs. Or is that just a random eyeball? Random eyeball then.
Got him up on the side.
Get him. Another one. Yeah, careful there.
I wanted to get him in the pit, knock out.
Maybe. Oh, come on. Just tip him in. Tip him in. Yeah!
Yeah, just still tight, trying to not get stuck there, so I was trying to be super careful. When I go against horizontals, I don't have forks, as you might have noticed, so just to keep us from getting stuck on the wood and stuff. And plus the forks don't really help much against horizontals. But yeah, it was a super easy fight. Guy's bot wasn't working quite right, so I just took it conservative. And this is our second loss. We ended up going 3-2, but this will be our second loss.
Fight, robots, fight!
Slam, this is another drum
Weapon
spinner.
motor from Slam, revving it up. Meanwhile, Bigfoot's trying to find a perfect opportunity to use his
They actually made it
flipper.
pretty deep into the tournament.
Directly to the wall.
They're able to get underneath us.
You guys are seeing action coming from that.
Not again.
Yeah, there's not much
And now
to
it's
see.
stationary. Unfortunate to move.
They were
in that
winning the whole fight, even though we ended up getting high centered. But we managed to.
Fight robots fight.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard to say who.
Weapon motor from Slam revving it up. Meanwhile, Bigfoot's trying to find a perfect opportunity to use his flipper. Pinned directly to the walls.
Yeah, they kept getting to the side of us.
Action coming from that.
Not again.
And now it's stationary.
Yeah,
Unfortunate to
I'm
move
trying to change it
in
so
that
we can actually get the
round.
stuff. I'm going to
4,
use the flipper
3, 1. Knockout.
Later, I might make other changes, but yeah, both of our losses were to the pit, not even falling in the pit, but getting high centered. So, yeah, we'll see. Yeah, we'll see what we end up making changes to the flipper, making it so the flipper can go downward. Also putting a hook on the flipper to essentially give it a let it be able to clamp down on robots. I'm going from four forks to 2 forks to try to save on weight. We'll redistribute. I'm not going to add the weight anywhere at the moment, but after the May events, I'm going to make some dramatic changes. So, but yeah, we'll see. We got another event, 2 more events in May, 2 weeks apart again. So that'll be interesting. Hopefully I can get moved into the condo by then and have time to work on the bot afterwards. I'm definitely going to have to make some changes after May, but yeah, otherwise it's been good. Thank you for anyone that tuned in or is watching it on YouTube, because I'm going to upload this as a VOD. And you guys have a good night. So, sorry I haven't been able to record these in a while. I've recently moved, so I've been pretty busy. Hopefully, at least for the next few weeks, I should be able to get some videos going. I've had 2 events since I last streamed. An event down in Riverside and one over in Beloit. They're also working on some big changes to Bigfoot, and I have a second bot in the works. And today we're going to talk about the event that was in Riverside. Next week I'm going to talk about the event that happened in Beloit. Both of those happened this month, 2 weeks apart, but it's been 2 weeks since the most recent one, so I'm pretty behind, as I mentioned. And then once I get done covering those events, I'm going to go over the changes I made to Bigfoot, since they're pretty substantial. I'm basically swapping out all of the electronics in it, which will give us a much more drive power, make us a little bit faster. And hopefully after that, I might be able to talk about the new bot I'm working on. We'll see how far along I am in that by the time that gets going. And hopefully by the time I do the video on the changes to Bigfoot, I'll have at least be done making them. My printer was down for a couple of weeks, so I'm behind on that as well. So, but let's go over this event. This was the event, RSL at Riverside. Their events are normally in Minnesota, but they came down to Illinois to host an event. It's a little bit smaller event, but they put on a good show. This is Modified Swiss, and this was our first fight against Scrubadubba, a vertical spinner. Traditionally, we've had quite a bit of trouble. Let's just get it started. I'm not going to play the audio real loud because it's how I recorded it and ended up doubling the audio. So we kind of lock horns a lot in the middle. I have more pushing power than he does, but And we kind of going back and forth. We changed the forks so there's only 2 of them, so so the verticals seem to be able to get their licks in. Here he damaged the base plate, basically with that hit, having it come completely off. It's just held on by the top screw. Things aren't looking good. I also need to make changes so we can flip over better. You can see that you can almost see our battery because that's where the ESC is. That's what that light is. That's what's controlling the robot. Here's where his weapon goes down. He is actually having ESC troubles, and during the fight, the belt on the weapon got twisted, which caused his ESC to overheat for his weapon, the speed controller for the weapon, and that essentially made it forced it to go down. He actually had to forfeit the next 2 matches because of it. And so from here, we basically are able to control the match. Since we are a little bit speedier and we definitely have a little bit more torque behind us too. And I typically have pretty good control. In our flipper, it's mostly functional, which we have in our favor. I'm not sure if I'm going to end up doing anything about the horizontals taking chunks out of our wedge. There's not much I can do about that. I would have to kind of change the geometry of it, but yeah, we actually, man, I'm surprised he actually didn't take any tires. Oh, never mind. There was 1 tire that came off. We actually somehow, yeah, we get high centered at the last second, but we actually managed to win that fight, which was incredible when you consider the fact that that damage to the front, that one of the changes that I'm making will make it so it's less likely to happen. Essentially, that front wedge will be attached, will be more secure than that. But overall, we kind of got lucky there. But luckily, did well enough that I could capitalize on that luck. So we're going to go on to our next fight. This is our second fight. This is actually against a necessary evil kit driven by a little girl. So it's basically just a control match. There's no weapon, so no matter what happens, I'll be fine. I went with the old forks, as you can see on this one, because I wasn't worried about them taking damage. A big thing about going to the 2 forks is that the old forks would get bent up, but since it's a control bot, I didn't bother with that. Pretty much I was able to outdrive her most of the match. I was able to get around. I think she got a couple pins in here, but yeah, it looks like there's a little bit of compromised drive partway through, which kind of helps. The wheel just kind of randomly came off. In the changes I'm making, the shafts are going to be longer for the motors, so hopefully the wheels will come off less frequently when I don't want them to. Overall, just kind of like staying off of her forks, kind of getting around. We're pretty low to the ground, so we end up winning a lot of the time. And I'm also able to do a better job of facing them. I think partway through I kind of kept forgetting to use my flipper, but I didn't feel the need to use the flipper because they can drive upside down, but I guess I should have tried harder to flip them over because that way it's harder to drive if they're upside down because you have to get used to it. But we ended up winning the judge's decision because we kind of controlled that whole match. We had more pins that we got underneath them more. So overall, we're doing pretty good. Now we're going to the 3rd round of the qualifiers.
Let's see it.
At this point in time, we just need 1 more win to qualify for the single elimination. We had to fight Nosferatu at Betz Botz a couple months before this in March, and we lost against them. It was much closer that time. But since then, Nosferatu added a anti-control configuration. And so we're just, with the smaller arena, we were not able to get a good angle on them. Seems like with this new configuration he has, that the front to front interactions they keep getting the most of. And we're just sort of getting pushed around. I think we can beat Nosferatu, but trying to be careful, trying to not get stuck in the corner. I think that's what happened too often during this fight. I kept getting stuck in the corner.
This Bigfoot apparently has 4 feet. It's a little confusing.
We can get underneath them. We're just not quite able to do it. Yeah, once we're down to 2 wheels, we not much we could do. I'm basically just in survival mode at this point. Yeah, he definitely wants blood. He wants to knock us out. He was not quite able to do it in this match. He came pretty damn close. The new changes will also make it so Bigfoot will be able to drive upside down. In addition, our new configuration, we won't necessarily be able to self-right easier, but we will be able to drive upside down. We had 1 tire left, but yeah, that was not a great fight. We ended up losing that one, obviously. We took a lot of damage. We weren't able to get nearly as much control as I would have liked. But yeah, he's got some long forks. But yeah, I think with the smaller arena, it's kind of hard to go against the bots like that and get control. He was able to push us around. But I need to figure out how I'm going to consistently beat vertical spinners, because that seems to be where we have the trouble. So at this point, we're 2-1. We need 1 more win in order to qualify for the single elimination. And so here I'm out to get any win I can. It's a full body spinner. Lawnmower of Chaos used to not be that great, but they've had their weapon a lot more consistent. So that's how they're going in this fight 2-1 as well. Just smothering them this whole fight. Not able to quite spin up. Just kind of make it so they can't quite spin up. Yeah, the motor isn't quite able to have enough torque to spin or something. It's kind of getting caught up. And so I just kind of, since it's, do or die at this point, I waited until after the count out to self-right them. So it was a relatively easy win. We didn't take too much damage. But going to a single elimination bracket, we had to fight Sunshine of Death again. This time, her dad was the one driving, so I'm having to fight a pastor. Honestly, I think by this point, the arena took a whole lot of damage, so the forks, you'll see we get stuck a lot on them, a lot more than before, and more than they do, because we have a lot sharper of forks. But wheel randomly coming off again. But yeah, we are kind of struggling here. Later on, we're able to just start getting underneath them more once I get used to the arena. Yeah, you got some pins in early. Kept getting stuck with those damn forks. But yeah, damn, I didn't realize how bad that first minute was for us. I'm kind of worried at this point. But then here's kind of where it turns around. Able to push him up against that wall. Now getting around the side of him a few times in a row. was able to break out of the pin, so it's not quite as good. Doesn't quite look as good for him. Cinched down. Oh, and this is where I think he doesn't quite have the same amount of drive because he's struggling to drive forward. Just sort of sneak underneath him, clamp him in the gripper. Kind of move around the arena to get. I need to be able to do stuff like that a lot quicker because I think my remote isn't quite as accurate as I need it to be. Because I think being able to make those changes a lot quicker will help me in those fights against vertical spinners. But we ended up winning. I think it's because I controlled the second half a bit more, and that was a little bit fresher in their minds, which actually was enough to get us to the semifinal fight against Midnight. This fight was pretty brutal. This guy, I ended up kind of having a false start. Wait, no, it was a different fight. But yeah, this guy ended up winning the tournament. But here, we have a lot of back and forth. I don't remember if I mentioned this on stream, but I did try printing a titanium plate in the front wedge for against horizontals, and you can see that came flying out on both wedges. So yeah, I think that compromised the wedge. So there wasn't much wedge actually doing its job at this point. It'd been better if it's just straight rubber. We were struggling like be able to get in. We were getting the best part of a lot of these exchanges, but we weren't struggling to be able to capitalize on them. He went flying all over the place though. Yeah, we actually did pretty well. It was actually a pretty close fight. I was able to get a few pins in, and a lot of the hits kind of sent him flying, but we ended up losing a bit too many tires throughout this. I think we lose one more. I think we ended up finishing with 2 tires. Yeah, because one gets stuck in the weapon. Unfortunately, since it was a tire stuck at the end of the match, they took it out to see if his weapon still worked, and it worked, so I didn't end up getting damage points for that. And here, I think since my drive is entirely too compromised, I'm not able to capitalize on it, on the fact that he doesn't have a weapon. I think maybe if I had either the front 2 or back 2 instead of the angle, I might have been able to get enough pins in order to come out with the win, but I wasn't quite able to do it. So he ended up winning the judge's decision, but that was a pretty close one. And so then from there I have to fight for third. And so this was against Kingslayer. This is a scalar kit. Scalar kits have been doing pretty well, but Kingslayer by this point had been pretty struggling to repair. So I think their weapon was pretty compromised by this point. So they ended up getting stuck. I kind of get close just in case because it looked like they were going to come down. They don't end up falling down before the count out is. And it was kind of a weak count out, so everybody in the crowd was kind of confused. But yeah, we ended up winning that fight, obviously, by knockout. So we ended up getting 2 knockouts at the event. The final record ends up being 5-2. So that was pretty good. It was our best event yet, even including the next event, spoiler. But yeah, we ended up getting third, so we actually came home with a trophy. I forgot to actually put a picture of the trophy on here. I'll probably have it in the thumbnail though. I'll be sure to do that once I upload the YouTube. Once I upload this to YouTube, I'll be sure to add the. I'm gonna go through the Betz Botz events in May, which happened about 2 or 3 weeks ago. We didn't do as well. We went 2-2. Didn't quite make the bracket, which is huge disappointment after getting 3rd place at the RSL event. There's some problems that I think we ran into at RSL, but we also ran into here, and I'll go over that. And those changes are reflected in the version 3 of Bigfoot, which hopefully I'll get to talk about next week. I'll go into depth in that, but right now we're going to focus on the fights. Maybe I'll talk about that to the stream after I record the analysis for the fights. Before we get started, this was a scalar kit. This was our first fight of the day. And this is just a regular scalar kit. They've been becoming more popular because they've been doing well. It's a simple kit. They got stuck in the wall, so they had to really back up. When bots get stuck with their weapon into the arena, they get an unstick. If this were to happen a second time, then they would be out. I know I said I wouldn't talk over it, but this isn't actually fighting, so I guess I'll keep talking. This happens a second time during this during this event. Spoiler alert. And then I think I get high centered or something. Having the two wheels alternated like that is not ideal. Now I'm going to go through the analysis. Yeah, this was not a great fight for us. I think there's a little bit of bad luck. I'll break it down a bit more about. But yeah, this is super disappointing. We fought a scalar and won easily last time, but this was a fresh scalar. As you kind of saw, I kind of biffed the box rush because I would have hit them there and I had to recenter because for whatever reason with my controller and transceiver, I can't like turn while moving super well, even if I try. But yeah, I would have hit him on the side, so I had to redo that. That was almost bad. They almost got tires there. We'll just skip over this part. Here I'm kind of being careful. I'm a little bit scared. That just was bad luck, I think, just getting my flipper torn off. The flipper's going to be lower, but we'll still be susceptible to that until we are able to get it completely in the body. But that's kind of part of having a flipper up there. It kind of is vulnerable to that. But that's only happened like a couple times. That's just felt real bad. But even after that, we're still doing pretty good keeping up on him, being a little bit aggressive. Almost lost tires there. Also, it's worth mentioning I didn't know what two-tooth was, and that's why I have the forks going into this one. I would have rather not have the forks going into a fight against a horizontal, but I just went with it because it would feel shitty to be like, oh, I'll switch at the last minute. Yeah, because not great losing that tire there. What the hell? I just broke it. Yeah, because unfortunately what happens here is I sort of prop them up and they kind of come back onto the tire. Let's try to slow it down real quick. Speed. Let's see how it happened exactly. Oh, well, we got to circle back. Yeah, I'm not quite as squared up as I want to be. I should have backed off and come back more squared up. I couldn't quite correct in time. And this is where I lost the other tires, so I'll just keep it slowed. They just sort of like slid off of my front there. I think part of it was actually having the forks. Just yeah, I should have backed off, but I wanted to get underneath them. We're gonna mute it while mute it. Yeah, mute it while we do that. While I'm playing it slow motion. Yeah. And then yeah, I tried to commit to it. I should have yeah, I went forward. I should have backed up at that point, but and then we're just dead in the water at that point. But yeah, I think when I get into locked horns, I need to get these. I should have backed off when we're in those situations, but I didn't want them to keep speeding up. Another thing I want to do is have an actual metal front for the horizontal fights. But that was that fight. I could a little bit of bad luck, and they just sort of ended up falling on my tires, which was rough. Because I think even if I had wheel guards, those tires would have still been hit. This is, although it looks like another scalar kit, this is not a scalar kit. It's sort of based off it. We fought them at RSL in the semifinals, and it was a close fight at semifinals. Yeah, that was not super happy at this point, losing the front. The problem with that is because actually on Bigfoot, you can see the TPU. Yeah, basically it broke like right here. I don't know what she was gonna say, but yeah, it basically broke right here. But yeah, the problem is that there's no TPU here. In the new version, this and that are part of the same to prevent that from happening. Yeah, I'm surprised that didn't happen at the other time we fought. But yeah, that's a thing that I'm changing, like I described, since these two parts aren't connected. They're going to be connected in the future. That way it'll be a lot harder for that to happen. Even if this gets cracked, it can stay connected. But yeah, let's kind of go through how that went down. Actually, looking back at it, you can't tell from the picture, from the video, but looking at it later, this isn't the version from that fight, but there was a gash kind of into the flipper. So I think what happened is they basically, instead of normally hitting it here, they hit like the side of the wedge. So basically just there was a side load when normally it's a front load. Instead of it hitting like this, it just like knocked it off. It basically got a cantilever. I'm considering putting like sort of a chamfer or a fillet right here to possibly mitigate that, but I'm not sure that would even do anything. But But yeah, that was a little bit of lack of luck because normally I'd try to hit him like on the wedge to the side, but that was one of the first times it was face to face. And then pretty much as we'll see after this, basically I don't do a very good job. It kind of throws me off. I know in my brain that okay, I need to hit it with the other wedge, but I just do a terrible job of keeping the actual wedge I have left centered, as you can tell, because the first two tires that go are the side on the side that I lost. Happens twice. Yeah, because he's on the left side of me. But yeah, because he came in. Let's look at before we lost that tire. Yeah, he was to the left, kept ending up on the left side of me, and I should have backed up and made sure he was on the right side of me. Yeah, I don't know why I went in after I wasn't lined up properly. Yeah, he's on the left side of me. I should have gotten out of there, like driven over on that one. But yeah, it's funny how I have one tire here and I'd move more movement in the other fight when I had two tires. But yeah, pretty much he just finishes me off here. Luckily, that was gentle compared to the other stuff, but yeah, that was rough. I kind of talked about what I do differently, mostly building the bot and sort of being a bit more careful when I have only half my wedge, if that does happen, because who knows, it could happen again. But yeah, we went 0-2 at the start. Luckily, it is modified Swiss, so we're able to still get 2 more fights, even though we lost the first 2. And also, Midnight didn't end up lost of a later fight, even though they won this one, and they didn't make it to the bracket despite winning the last event. So that was pretty crazy. The one they lost, I don't remember what happened in their first fight, but in their second loss, they ended up flying into the pit. Another homemade horizontal. I'm not going to talk as much about this, but there's a few times in this fight I'm surprised I didn't get my tires. I really misplayed, like as we saw in the beginning. Flipping him upside down definitely made it so they couldn't drive as well. I kept hoping that they would get stuck in the corner, but they just weren't, and I kept having to engage. I tried to flip them up on their side, like I did with like Kingslayer, but it wasn't quite working. And I accidentally flipped them right over because otherwise I would just be sitting them watching them flail. But yeah, they just do so little damage. It's crazy. Yeah, I'm talking over it because I'm not gonna go back and analyze it because they weren't a super effective horizontal, but also that tapping was the 10-second marker. I don't know why it's that. But yeah, that was a pretty easy fight. We won that handedly, but they couldn't do much to us. But 3 horizontals in a row, but 3 slightly different horizontals. Actually, the 2 were not slightly different, or not as different as this one. But yeah, not much to talk about there. We ended up winning, so I feel a lot better after going the 2 losses, finally getting a win. So then we had one more fight. We actually fought a little bit earlier before the rest of the bracket because he had to leave for his like daughter's rehearsal or something. So then there's this one. Is a Belladonna is a vertical spinner. And yeah, spoiler on the length of the video, but one thing I noticed the problem with Belladonna has is they need forks if they're going to be a vertical spinner, as you see. Yeah, I let him kind of get me on the side, but since they don't have forks, they weren't really able to capitalize. The flipper can flip people over. I decided after the 2 losses earlier, I just wanted to get a knockout. But yeah, coming back, I'm trying to think of even if he had forks, some of the a lot of front on hits. Because there was one time he might have been able, if he had forks, he would have gotten to the side, but. Forks got stuck in the wood. But yeah, there was like one side where they kind of got to the side, but it's so hard to get bite with the weapon they have, especially because we're a relatively low bot, so unless you're able to feed us into your weapon. But yeah, they were in another fight, or another event about a week ago, still didn't decide to put forks on that thing. That's the one thing that would make their bot much more interesting. But 2-2 event, and we kind of were able to recover from the shaky start. Either way, it's very disappointing, and I'm hoping some of the changes. And
I made the biggest update to my combat robot yet. But first, here's all the changes, iterations, and lessons that got us here. My robot in question is a 1-pound flipper called Bigfoot. I've taken it to about 5 events already, but we'll start from the beginning. It started as a 2-wheeled plastic ant, but after losing a match the first time my wheel came off, I switched to 4. Using 4 motors in direct drive forced me to replace my Malinky Nano with the high voltage version to accommodate the extra current. I like the Malinky because it saves weight and complexity by combining the receiver and the speed controller. On the subject of drive, Bigfoot's wheels are molded Vitaflex 30, which gives it good traction in order to push other bots around and control the match. Additionally, the wheels are ablative because a stuck wheel slows us down more than a missing one. Bigfoot can usually drive well even while missing a wheel or two, which is good considering we never go 2 minutes without losing one. Taking us back chronologically, in order to move Bigfoot to Open Ant, I replaced the printed PETG parts with printed TPU and Easy Nylon. Additionally, I replaced the printed forks with laser-cut AR500 steel. After a couple events, I went from 4 forks to 2 so that they could have a larger cross-section and not get bent so easily. The new forks handle hits better, but vertical spinners seem to find more angles on me with the fewer forks. Also, the new forks have a more limited movement after I had to learn the hard way that was needed. Shout out to Remy for the tip about using tape to limit the fork movement before I got the new batch of forks. Now, onto the weapon. Bigfoot's flipper is indirectly powered by a servo using this mechanism of linkages. This protects the servo and allows me to control the speed and torque in the design phase. Since the flipper is just plastic, I put it behind a TPU wedge. Consequently, I typically only lose the flipper from unforced errors or top attacks. But honestly, you could say the wedge is more important than the flipper. The last change I made before the most recent revamp is the little hook I added to the flipper so I can clamp down if needed. Version 2 of Bigfoot had fought in 4 MRCA qualifying events, resulting in 12 wins, 4 knockouts, 8 losses, and a 3rd place trophy. Those changes happened incrementally over time, but now I've made the biggest alterations since the jump from plastic to Open Ant. Most of the electronics have been overhauled, with the 2-cell LiPo battery being replaced with a 3-cell, the 4 800 RPM Turnabout N20 motors being replaced with the 3mm shaft Repeat Robotics Mark IIs. This results in a higher speed and torque from the drive. The gearboxes should be more durable, and these motors also have longer shafts, so my wheels should stay on. But wait, won't this add 50 grams to a robot that is only 1 pound, I hear you asking? You're right, but here's how I got the weight back while having some to add to print layers to the bottom plate. I replaced Bigfoot's Go Build a Speed servo with the King Max KM1203MD servo that has comparable torque and speed but at a third the weight. Side note, because of the battery switch, I added a BEC to control the voltage going to the servo so I don't burn it out. Alright, back to saving weight. Previously, the flipper and servo mounts were separate from the bottom to protect it if they broke, but they never did, so I made them part of the bottom. This got rid of 8 3mm screws and nuts and simplifies the assembly. Additionally, the lower part of the motor mount was also its own part, but now they're part of the front and back. This allowed me to get rid of 4 more screws and should prevent this. Or this.
It seems like the ramp in front of Bigfoot.
The top also uses 2 fewer screws, which brings us up to 12 fewer screws and nuts, which adds up weight-wise in an almost entirely plastic robot. And now, getting away from weight, I subtly but importantly changed the geometry of the flipper such that it sits below the top of the wheels and more easily drive upside down. Lastly, I made changes to my configuration for fighting horizontals. Before version 3, I just had a forkless version of the wedge, but now I have a titanium plate bolted to the wedge. We'll have to see how well it stays on, because I have concerns about them catching the edge. Ideally, these changes will make Bigfoot a bit more reliable in the arena. Our next event is Betz Botz in July, so be sure to subscribe so you can catch the recap. Thanks for watching.
Oh, Bigfoot on the ropes, taking 2 hard shots.
We just got back from fighting our antweight flipper Bigfoot at Betz Botz. We brought both version 2 and 3. If you see the green unpainted plastic, that's version 3. If you see the painted brown plastic, that's version 2. And with that said, let's get on with the video. Our first fight was against Nosferatu. Going into this, they were ranked 3rd, and they've beat us twice in the past, so we were looking pretty intimidated. I went with the version 3 to have every advantage I could get. As you'll see, the extra speed sort of helps us out in sort of dodging his attacks and getting where I need to go. I also felt that with the new motors that have a lot more control than I did before in my movements. Throughout, we're able to lock forks instead of getting hit a lot of times. Although even when I do get hit, I seem to get lucky and land on my feet. Yeah, I sort of try to keep locking horns. You'll see that both of us, since the floor was real rough going into the event, anyone with forks was getting stuck a lot. He almost went into the pit on that last exchange. I keep trying to use his aggression against him, kind of waiting for him to flail and then try and capitalize, but can't quite capitalize as much as I want. Got stuck on the ground there. This is where he runs into the side of the wall. He ends up getting stuck. His entire bot essentially shut down. So we ended up getting essentially a free win, which I'll take. But even though we won kind of through luck, I felt pretty good about how I was driving. He wasn't able to basically get any real good hits in. The only damage was some damage to the bottom, which, as you can see here. But otherwise, we were feeling good after that. Our second fight was against a 4-wheel drive drum spinner called Ampere. Ampere definitely made some changes between his last event because he was not ranked super high but ended up doing well at this event. Arguably should have went with version 3 going into it, because even though we're able to get underneath him and sort of push him around a bit and he has troubles doing damage to us, I think that version 3 might have been better in this fight. Ultimately, we're holding our own so far, but the condition of the floor really holds us back with our forks getting stuck. And then here he's able to get our corner and sort of pop us upside down. And then this series of pops ends up disconnecting 2 wires and ends up taking out 3 of the motors. So we're pretty much just got 1 wheel spinning and we're basically dead in the water. And then he ends up popping us upside down, getting that last tire, and then forcing me to tap out. Going to this event, I had glued the connections on all of my motors and all the controllers, but the one I didn't do it on was that one, and I ended up losing the fight because of it. I think we could have came back if I would have kept my connections together, because we weren't taking too much damage, and I showed that I could get underneath them, so I just needed to, so I could have came back. Our third fight was against Killjoy, a vertical spinner with 3 Omni wheels. Keep in mind that the driver of this is not the builder for this event. Normally Jared drives it, but Stephanie was driving today. I was feeling pretty good going into this fight because with the Omni wheels I knew I was able to push them around. I find out pretty early on that with that one fork it isn't able to do much, and so I'm able to get underneath them pretty consistently. It actually looks like it's bouncing on the ground. I'm able to get a flip in early on, but then drive my wheel right into their weapon, which ultimately isn't too bad because I have 3 more, but after that I end up being a little bit more careful. As you saw there, Jared added a self-righting mechanism, which seems to be at least somewhat effective, but it took a few tries, but ultimately was able to get Killjoy back on its feet. Killjoy is able to keep strafing around me, but isn't quite able to, get a bite on me. Get a pin, but I don't fire the weapon because my flipper's right underneath the spinner, and that would have killed the flipper. Keep strafing around me, but try to capitalize on their mistake. Still careful at this point because I know they haven't really scored any points and they can't really do much to me, and so I figure that I just don't want to make a mistake. Here I'm able to get one last flip in. I'm more careful this time because I know I lost a tire trying to drive into him last time. The self-righter isn't quite able to self-right before the end. I try to push them into the wall to possibly get a knockout, but ultimately I run out of time. So it ends up with Bigfoot winning by judge's decision. Our fourth fight was against a vertically symmetrical wedge called Cavorting Beastie. Going into this match, we were both 2-1, so whoever won this match got to go on to the single elimination bracket. They were just as fast as we were and just as well driven, although I think they might have had slightly more traction. You can see throughout the entire match, neither one of us had control of the other robot for more than a second because we were able to just sort of slide off of each other or get away from each other. I wasn't able to use the flipper much at all. I didn't flip them a single time. I think a big learning point, other than that I need to brush up on my driving, is that I should run the flipper upwards against vertically symmetrical wedges. That way I can clamp down on them with the flipper. But yeah, this was an intense match. I had to drive my best throughout the entire match. And it's hard to say. There we go. We end up getting underneath them like that and a few times, but I think if I ran the flipper upwards, I would be able to clamp down and actually hold them a bit longer and actually turn it into a pin. Ultimately, though, and unfortunately, they end up getting the judge's decision, which I think was mostly because I had a weapon that I wasn't able to use because of their driving. And so we ended the day at 2-2, and this was our last match of the day. And I'll just let it play out the rest of it. Betz Botz was really competitive this time around, but Bigfoot held its own. Even though it didn't quite make it into the single elimination bracket, we still have some takeaways. Version 3, the drive performed as expected. It's faster and more controllable. Unfortunately, I didn't quite get the chance to see if the flipper works as well as version 2 with the matchups we had and just kind of how they went. Another takeaway, the only thing I want to change about the bot is spacing out the forks. That way the vertical spinners can't get us from the corners quite as easily, and we don't have that sort of weak point there. And then there is the driving against certain wedges that way, and using the flipper as a clamper as default against the vertically symmetrical wedges. But other than that, be sure to last month we went to Botz and Brews. It was at Riverland's Brewery, thus the name. We took our robot Bigfoot. The arena they had there was the most sophisticated that we've ever fought in. It had hammers and steel floor and a pneumatic pit. The field of bots there was pretty stellar for it being a relatively small event. It had some of the best bots in the Midwest. And after our event 2 weeks ago being less than stellar, I was feeling pretty anxious and wanting to get some wins that weekend. And plus, look at these trophies. I absolutely had to leave with one of these trophies. I'd be really disappointed if I didn't. So I was going to try my best. Let's see how I did. Our first fight was against Separation Anxiety. Based on their performance at previous events, we were feeling pretty confident going into it. And as you can see, since they're a horizontal spinner that's pretty high up in the air, it's very difficult for their weapon to hit us. And with their wedge and lack of forks, we're able to get underneath them pretty easily. Let me take this time to apologize for the video quality. Since it was outside, we couldn't record ourselves because we'd just see the reflection of ourselves. So we kind of had to rely on the event organizers, so this is what we ended up getting. Yeah, unfortunately it's hard to tell what's going on in that corner. I know we end up flipping them upside down at some point. I think that happened earlier. And we end up losing a tire right there. Luckily, we can run just fine with 3. They're actually more dangerous while upside down. Because obviously they got that tire. And throughout the fight, they actually ended up bending the forks enough. We ended up replacing them. But other than that, they can't really drive super well upside down. So we're feeling pretty confident. I'm just trying to be careful not to make mistakes. Here they end up getting stuck on the corner of the arena and they end up getting tapped out. So that ends up being a knockout for us. So our second fight was against Death by 1,000 Forks. Unfortunately, I don't have footage for this fight because, like I said before, we were relying on the event organizers for footage and they didn't post that for some reason. But we started out pretty strong since Death by 1,000 Forks is a wedge bot. If we can control the match, then we can win. But unfortunately, wheel came off, which was fine. One wheel, losing one wheel. We can keep trucking just fine until the second wheel came off for no reason. Keep in mind, it's a wedge bot, so the wheel just decided it didn't want to be part of the rest of the robot. And then around this time, they start being able to get underneath us because we can't maneuver quite as quickly because there's a little bit of friction there now. And then the third wheel came off. And at this point, I just realized I guess I'll lose. And then the fourth wheel came off and then I got counted out. So we ended up getting knocked out that round. And usually we use this glue on a roll to keep the wheels on because they're just sort of press fit on there, so there can be semi-ablative. But after that fight, I said screw it and decided to super glue them because I did not want to lose another fight like that. Our third fight is against Slam. They've been a pretty consistently good bot, being in the top 10 all season. So we're pretty intimidated going into this one. They've even knocked us out before, but we'll see how this goes. A little awkward start with us getting stuck on the seam a couple times. Kind of able to get out of their grip. We end up locking horns for a really long period of time here, to the point that our motors really don't like it. And you'll see right here, all but like one motor is working. And I don't know if it was the hit or what, or if it just needed a second, but then we're working just fine the rest of the fight. We're able to get a few pins here, but we're not quite able to flip them over yet. Here we're feeling real good with this pin. We end up getting out of that because they get stuck on that seam. We end up flipping them over. This is real good for us. Makes them really hard for them to hit us, and they can't drive nearly as well. And we pretty much win the ground game at this point. Although apparently we can't quite push them with them on top of us. Here they basically get stuck on the side of the arena. Their bot actually completely shuts down, and they end up getting counted out with just a couple seconds left on the clock, giving us one more knockout up for the day. Let me talk about the tournament format for a second, since it's kind of relevant to our odds of getting a trophy. Since they had a limited amount of time, they decided to do standard Swiss, meaning that every bot gets 4 fights, and then they're going to determine the place, the first, second, and third, based on how well they do in those 4 fights. And with the only exception being if there's a tie, they'll do a tiebreaker. And keep in mind that the weight for knockouts is 100-0, while the weight for judges' decisions is 70-30. So because we got knocked out in the second round, pretty much our only chance of possibly getting third and walking home with a trophy is if we get a knockout in this last fight. And even still, it's not guaranteed. So let's see how that went. Our fourth fight was against Lil Pacino. We fought them in the past, and we're feeling pretty confident going into this one. It was just a matter of whether or not we can get that knockout. Get stuck on that lip and turn myself around for some reason. Able to consistently get underneath them, and they're just sort of bouncing all over the place. Get a nice pin. And then right here, when they're on their back, I'm able to prevent them from being able to gyrate off their back long enough for them to end up getting stuck there. And they end up getting counted out, so that ends up being a third knockout for us for the day. So we've done all we can at this point to have our best chance at getting on the podium. We've been sweating all day in the hot sun. I end up getting a huge gash on my head from hitting the awning of the Waffle Dia truck. And just as we're about to start packing up, that's when we get the announcement. Bigfoot and T-Pose need to fight a tiebreaker for third. So I was real excited about this fight, not just because it meant I have a chance for third, but I also get to use that wedge configuration I added to version 3 and haven't got to use yet. So we start the fight kind of after the bell rings. This first exchange is pretty big. Pretty much any time they're upside down, that means they can't hit us, so that's good. Even with the wedge configuration, we still get stuck on that lip. For pretty much the first minute, neither of us is really able to gain the advantage on the other, with them not being able to do any damage to us and us not being able to quite pin them down. But you'll see when the tides turn. So this happens a couple times during this fight where we can't quite see what's going on. And then we push him into the corner. Alyssa is able to hit the hammer at the perfect time. This actually takes out his drive motor, which is super good for us because now we're able to actually pin him, which is pretty much the whole strategy. So we're doing pretty good. Feeling good at this point. He's down a drive side. Yeah. But here's when he goes to his own corner with his hammer and tries to do some percussive maintenance. I kind of just let him do it because I don't want to get hit by the hammer himself or myself. And the crazy part is it seems to work. Or maybe that's just the gyration of him. And here ends up taking a wheel, but it doesn't really matter because we can drive just fine on 3 wheels. And it ends up going to judge's decision. Not much happens in the last few seconds. Before I get into the result of the judge's decision, I want to talk about how well the wedge configuration ended up working. As expected, the heads on a bunch of the button head screws ended up getting sheared off, but luckily the one side was able to stay on just fine even with one screw left. Also, I was worried about the weapon catching the lip on the plate, but luckily it seems like when it got hit that it just chunked it instead of taking the whole plate with it. So all in all, I feel pretty good about how this configuration works. So, the result of the judge's decision. As you can see, we ended up winning it and getting 3rd. It's good to see Bigfoot finally performing as well as I know it can, especially with the new version. I knew then there seems like the upgrades I made are really paying off, and we're performing as pretty much as well as we can, except for that one fight, which apparently there's no record of, so it didn't happen. But I'm going to be focusing on my beetle weight up until we get closer to finals. And before you ask, yes, it does spin. So be sure, if you like this video, be sure to like below, and thanks for watching. A couple of weeks back, I took our antweight robot Bigfoot to its last MRCA qualifier of the season. We're hoping to win some fights in order to increase our rank to get the best matchups we can at the beginning of finals. And I was also hoping to get some stick time. That way I was as fresh as possible going into finals with, you know, my familiarity with the robot. We were feeling pretty good based on some of the robots that were there. There were a couple robots that we were pretty intimidated by, including Cuttlefish, Scrubadubba, and Midnight. We didn't make any changes to the design since Bots and Brews because we were feeling pretty good about it. So without further ado, let's get into the fights. So our first fight is against a 2-wheeled vert called Cuttlefish. We haven't fought them before, and they also made some design changes going into this event, so we weren't really sure what to expect. First fight of the day, we're both sort of getting our bearings. Able to get a pin early on, so I'm feeling pretty good. Release it, pops us, but we're still on our feet. Able to push him across the box. Not quite able to get him where I want him to. You can notice his weapon assembly is sort of wobbly right now, but it's still spinning. Pops us up again. Here he takes off a wheel and pops us upside down. I drive into him to self-right, but he ends up getting stuck in our back end. So it's worth adding that since we lost our front left tire and our back left tire was actually kind of off-centered, we can't drive super straight, which I find out really soon. And we just sort of I don't know why I drove backwards in that situation. I think I was trying to drive backwards into the right, but instead I just went straight into the pit. And that's not a great way to start the day. Before we move on to the second fight, I should remind you that Betz Botz runs modified Swiss, meaning that we do 4 qualifying rounds, and if you get 3 wins or more, you move on to the single elimination bracket. So us losing our first match, we need to win the next 3 in order to qualify for the bracket. Our second fight is against a wedge called Revolutionary. Since they don't have forks, we're feeling pretty confident going into this one. We're able to get control pretty easily. And when we flip him over onto his back, his wheels can't touch the ground. But I decide to be nice and unstick him since I'm feeling confident and he's just a kid. Can't drive super well, so we can kind of do whatever you want. End up backing him into the corner or into the side. Hold the pin and then turn around, and then I sort of flip him back onto the kick plate. And I feel like dragging this out would not be nice, so I just sort of end it there. And we get a knockout in the second round. So our third fight is against a two-wheel drum spinner called Ankle Grinder. We start out trying to be aggressive, get across the box pretty quickly and smother him. Unfortunately, I have metal forks, so each time he hits us, they end up pushing the forks downward. They end up bending downward. And later in the fight, you'll see us start to get stuck because of it. For finals, I definitely want to print out some TPU forks for these sorts of matchups. We're able to start kind of being able to push them around a little bit. The forks get stuck there. Not able to get him in the pit, but we're able to get a pin driving backwards. Able to get him stuck there for a second, but it doesn't end up staying because he's able to gyro off of it. Sort of pushing him around a bit. We end up getting flipped upside down, and because I didn't practice it enough, I'm forgetting how to self-right. I'm just pushing sticks in the wrong direction. But luckily, he isn't able to really capitalize, so eventually I sort of end up giving up and decide to drive into him. And he isn't able to, he's just sort of like, we're both sort of all over the place, so he isn't really able to gain points. I'm still staying aggressive. The wheel comes off, and like I mentioned before, I didn't actually end up switching out the wheels from the first fight. So the one wheel ends up coming off easier, and that second wheel is wobbly, so I can't drive straight. After this fight, I do switch those out because I knew I should have done it earlier, but I was complacent. Popped up again. This one ends up going to the judge's decision. Walking away from that fight, we weren't sure which direction it was going to go, but we ended up taking that one. Looking back at that fight, I think it was because we were more aggressive the whole time, and we definitely did more to dictate the pace. I think the pins early on definitely made a huge difference, and when we were upside down, he wasn't able to capitalize at all. He wasn't chasing us down as much he probably should have been or could have been, and we only took a little bit of damage. The one wheel and the bent forks. So before we move on to the next fight, I'd like to let you guys know that I am back to streaming again, 7 p.m. on Thursdays. Most of the time I will be just doing CAD to give you guys a chance to get an early look on what I'm working on and to ask me questions, but I do have other things planned, and so subscribe if you want to see what's going on there. So our fourth round fight is against a wedge bot called Delirium. He is a NHRL mini bot. So he's able to get underneath us a lot easier than we can get underneath him, at least going straight on. We pretty much need to come at an angle in order to get underneath him. He nearly gets us in the pit at the beginning. So we are able to get underneath him in certain situations. Unfortunately, we get stuck on the floor. The forks get caught before we can try to get him in the pit there. That's how most of this fight goes, is him pinning us, because the geometry is just difficult to contend with. I was running it as a flipper, not trying to grab him. I don't know how much difference it would have made. At a certain point, I end up trying to get him in the pit since I'm losing. And here we are, able to get him in the pit and use the lifter to get them the last little bit. His wheel ends up touching the ground, so it ends up counting as a knockout for us. Unfortunately, it doesn't look quite as impressive because I accidentally backed into his forks as I was trying to back into him to push him the rest of the way in. But either way, through a combination of luck and clutching it, I was able to move on to the single elimination bracket. So for the first round of the single elimination, we end up getting pitted against Cuttlefish again. We end up getting fast out the gate, get underneath him a little bit, but we ended up showing our side to him, which is not good. Get popped upside down. I forget how to self-right again, which apparently is an ongoing theme.
You can hear one fork's keeping him at bay.
End up messing up. End up remembering there how to self-right. Getting the bad end of that hit, which honestly is kind of unlucky. And yeah, he keeps getting our sides. We lose a wheel. Get a pit in, so that's good. We're still in it. At this point, at least. Still got good control, because our wheels are actually straight, or like control of our own robot. And again, he keeps getting the sides. And I forget how to self-right, so I just drive into him. Again, he ends up flipping him upside down even when we're facing him. Self-right correctly that time. We lose the top plate here, and then we get stuck. If I had a nickel for every time Cuttlefish got stuck in the back of my robot at Betz Botz that weekend, I'd have 10 cents, which isn't much, but it's weird that it happened twice. So I forget how to self-right again. We get almost a pin. And here's where we get knocked out because he ends up hitting the wires. I arguably should have tapped out once I lost the top plate. I end up losing a Malinky in that last hit, so that kind of sucks. I think the reason that looked so much worse than the first fight is he ended up getting along the side of us more than last time. And for whatever reason, a lot of the front-on-front hits did not go our way, and we end up getting flipped upside down a lot. We actually spent more time upside down, I think, at that event than we have at all of the events this season combined. So I definitely need to practice driving upside down and self-righting before finals. I think I got complacent because I wasn't flipped over all that much. Ultimately, the event didn't help our rank at all. We ended up staying right where we were. We gained like 2 points of ELO. But I think we did learn a lot. It kind of forced me to reevaluate, like I said before, about practicing driving upside down and self-righting. Also, not being prepared to fight a real drum spinner like we did in that third fight. And so I want to print out TPU forks before finals because I know Blackout is a pretty scary drum spinner that I want to be prepared for. I also want to create a special configuration for control bots because I was already planning on printing out a light version of the front and back so I can have weight for a titanium top plate for hammer saws. And I want to use the lighter front and back for a special configuration against control bots where I actually have 4 forks instead of the 2. Maybe that'll help against bots like Delirium. I guess we'll find out if that makes a difference. But hopefully, to give myself a little bit of edge against in control v control matchups, because currently our record against other control bots isn't as good as our record against other bots, I don't think. We also brought a plastic ant called Jackalope to this event if you want to see how that was built, because it was one of Team Malice's designs, and also how it did. Click the video on screen now.
Pops one of its sides.
For those new to the channel, Bigfoot is my antweight lifter. It is my first antweight robot. I essentially made it a lifter in order to sort of learn the ropes of combat robotics, but actually ended up exceeding expectations and qualifying for the MRCA Finals and getting ranked 20th going in. So come with me as I tell you how the event went, and at the end of the video, I'm going to tell you my plans for the next season. For those out of the loop, the Midwest Robot Combat Association is a league that runs 1 pound and 3 pound robots. And at the end of the year, they invite the top 64 antweight robots and the top 32 beetleweight robots to compete in one final competition of the year. Due to the nature of this event, we knew we had to bring our A game because we were fighting the best antweight robots in the Midwest, if not the country. Because of that, we had 3 fully assembled robots instead of the normal 2, and we also threw together a configuration meant to specifically go up against Control Bot. Since every bot was ranked, they showed us the bracket ahead of time, and we knew what our first matchup was before we even showed up. And we were matched up against Ampere. Ampere had a major glow up partway through the season, and our first interaction with them, they got the upper hand on us.
Oh, Bigfoot on the ropes, taking 2 hard shots.
Going into this event, we thought maybe we'd be able to get underneath them pretty easily, but the night before the event, pretty much, they showed us a picture where they have some nice long forks.
2, 1, go! Both bots immediately making their way out to center.
You'll notice that Ampere, every time it turns, it kind of pops one of its sides up. That's because it has gyro forces in that weapon. It is so much mass spinning at such a high velocity that it wants to carry the entire mass of the robot over with it.
Ampere getting some big hits on Bigfoot. Definitely very experienced driving, even with those gyroscopic forces. Bigfoot having a hard time getting a hit on the side in order to use that flipper.
Those forks are doing their job on Ampere.
Oh, big hit there, since both flying. Ampere gets inverted, but so does Bigfoot in that last hit.
Now Ampere's struggle is that those forks are so long that it's going to struggle to get upright by hitting the walls and getting itself back over.
Yeah,
but getting another big pop on Bigfoot.
Manages to get itself flipped back over. They both bots square off in the center. Ampere definitely having an advantage of reach. Manages to get Bigfoot up onto the forks and then hit with that beater bar. Ooh!
Bigfoot now missing a wheel. That was a nasty shot, missing a fork as well.
Yeah, definitely took out the back wheel there. As long as it doesn't lose another one, it should be able to maneuver just fine, but it may give it a little bit less traction, a little bit less speed.
The ground game is gone on Bigfoot.
Yeah, Ampere definitely taking advantage and trying to press its advantage. Really wants to get a knockout if it can, just get that assured victory.
Ampere putting the amp fear in the competition today. Sorry, that was bad.
You're good. 20 seconds remaining in the fight. Both bots continue to square off. Bigfoot still has that flipper. Oh, another big hit there.
That flipper looking a little loose on Bigfoot. Something could have gotten knocked loose in the assembly, but we are down to the last 10 seconds.
Oh, another big hit right in the center. Bigfoot definitely showing its durability here as Ampere continues the assault. Only 2 seconds remaining. Time!
What an explosive match. Bigfoot hanging in there saying, I will not die today.
So it's pretty clear that I was struggling to get around him, and whenever we went front to front, I ended up getting the worst end of those exchanges. And so it was a good thing that I practiced driving upside down and self-righting, since I spent so much time upside down. That would have gone way worse if I hadn't have done that. I'm going to have to rethink my configuration for fighting verticals, since he sort of popped the front of the robot up. Since those screws are going into TPU, it sort of just, the nuts came through the little hole on the bottom. And when I moved the forks to be further out, you can see that the TPU ended up sort of ripping, and I think that's a big reason that we lost forks there. Also, he completely destroyed the servo horn, and since the servo horn for this servo is so difficult to find, I tried 3D printing some, and with some success. I guess we'll see later how well that's going to work. After the match, he actually showed that our forks ended up actually damaging a screw in his weapon, although I think our forks ended up losing that exchange. We lost that one. Our next fight is in the losers bracket and is against a vertical called Killjoy. Since we've beat them in the past pretty easily, I was feeling pretty confident.
3, 2, 1, go! All right.
Bigfoot with a box rush. Killjoy with not much of an answer.
Killjoy definitely spinning up its weapon. It looks like it's still got some mobility here, but Bigfoot gets underneath Killjoy.
Killjoy looking a little punch drunk after that first fight. Those were some serious repairs that I needed to make after that fight.
True, and Bigfoot getting that flipper arm doesn't have quite the pop of some of the other flippers like Yeeters, but definitely still very controlling and can be used as a gripping arm as well.
Very effective.
As you can see that it pulls Killjoy out into the middle of the arena.
Not looking to flip, but looking to corral and control.
Killjoy definitely wanting to get some space so it can spin up that weapon and hopefully get a good hit onto the sides of Bigfoot, but it looks like driving, it's very almost on ice for Killjoy. That might be a result of some of the...
Bigfoot's fork is now stuck in the arena. That is a risk that people are willing to take.
That's going to be a pause.
We are paused.
I'm more afraid of the gashes in the floor than I am of Killjoy at this point. Pretty much the entire second half of the match, you can sort of tell that I'm more worried about avoiding the gashes than the floor than I am trying to like make sure that I'm engaged in facing Killjoy.
All right.
All right, the clock has been reset back up. I got the thumbs up, so we'll resume in 3, 2, 1, go!
Killjoy spins back up, but Bigfoot rushes in immediately, giving no space.
As a reminder, if you get stuck on the arena, if it is the arena's fault that you get stuck, you get 1 unstick per fight. Otherwise, you've got to do it yourself. If you get stuck because of the actions of your opponent, there is no unstick.
Another good pin by Bigfoot as Killjoy struggles to get back into the action and point that weapon towards the enemy.
Yeah, it's definitely still got good drive, but its control is definitely hampered, possibly by damage in the previous fight. Bigfoot corrals back into the blue corner once again.
Bigfoot just staying on them, not allowing much space whatsoever. Killjoy running away at this point to try and get that weapon back up to speed and get a good pop.
Yeah, decent little pop there by Killjoy on Bigfoot. Bigfoot then turns it into another pin against the wall. Only 8 seconds remaining in the fight. Last second impressions between these two bots.
That's your fight.
Time in the round. This one will go to a judge's decision.
After that fight, to try to get the servo horn to work properly, since these screws weren't quite enough to hold it in place, I decided to super glue it down. We'll see how that works out. And since the forks are obviously a liability, the metal forks, I decided to replace them with TPU ones. I haven't really done that before, so we'll see how that ends up working out in the next fight. Our next fight is against another vertical called Technetium. We haven't actually fought them before, so I wasn't really sure what to expect, and I haven't been to too many of the same events as them. He also has a YouTube channel, so if you want to check them out, check the link down below.
Oh! Both these bots have already had a couple fights today. Technetium immediately going to town, trying to pop Bigfoot up. Bigfoot trying to use that flipper arm to its advantage. Technetium taking advantage of its low to the ground forks.
Bigfoot possibly high centered on something in the arena, gets loose again thanks to the flipper.
Yep, Technetium getting a good pin in the red corner there for a second.
And that is a good attempted pin by Bigfoot, keeping that flipper arm up, but getting popped in the process.
Yeah, Bigfoot once again inverted. Technetium giving chase, gets another hit, sends Bigfoot up into the air. It does land on its feet, which is nice, but doesn't want to take these big hits if it can help it.
Bigfoot is an incredibly durable bot, but you have to wonder how many shots it can take before something goes wrong in that robot.
Yep, Technetium continues to give chase. Bigfoot getting a nice pin in the blue corner. Just under a minute remaining. Both these bots have gotten some hits in.
Very good driving by both robots, staying very squared up to each other, getting those weapons in action.
Yeah, Bigfoot went in for a charge, but actually ramped off of the forks and took a hit from Technetium. 30 seconds remaining in the fight. Both these bots trying to get some good impressions. Technetium definitely getting these pops. Its weapon is being more effective than Bigfoot's at this time. Bigfoot having trouble getting that flipper into a advantageous location.
Bigfoot not taking a lot of damage, but definitely getting controlled and popped around in the process. Staying aggressive, but that's about it right now.
Yeah, it has managed to get some pins, but it needs to do some more to impress the judges. Only 5 seconds left in the fight. Last minute impressions happening right now. That's time.
And that is
time
your
in the round.
fight.
Although we were able to get around him and get some pins early on, it's pretty clear that simply printing out a TPU version of the metal forks wasn't working because we lost every front-to-front exchange. Also, what happened in the Ampere fight where he was able to get underneath the front lip of the robot and sort of kick it up and no longer be attached because of that one screw holding it down, or rather that one bolt. Again, we had the same issue with the flipper, so we didn't have a flipper the whole fight. Since the tournament is double elimination, that was our last fight of the day, since it was our second loss. We were able to get in a grudge match against Necessary Evil, and they were rocking their new undercutter for this fight.
2, 1, let's see it. Necessary Evil versus Bigfoot.
Looks like Necessary Evil is sporting that undercutter spinner once again for this grudge match.
It performed very well the first time.
Ripped out a battery.
Oh yeah, that's always good to see.
Looks like Necessary Evil is upside down right now, making that undercutter and overcutter.
All right, doing some very good corralling by Bigfoot right now. Necessary Evil hoping to cut off a wheel at some point if it can get to it.
Bigfoot using that wedge on the front of the robot very effectively right now to play defense.
Very well driven game right now. Necessary Evil trying to get around to those wheels as well as it can.
Looks like Wheel took a shot there, but the wheel looks just fine as of right now.
Bigfoot tanking all of those shots up front with that nice metal wedge it has.
Looks like Bigfoot has, up to this point...
Drive side is compromised on Bigfoot.
Oh, yeah.
And it's back.
Necessary Evil once again inverted, bouncing around a bit, back on its proper orientation. And a big shot there from Necessary Evil sends both of them into opposing corners.
Bouncing around a little bit.
And a
taking
wheel.
All right. Bigfoot does have 3. It can still drive pretty well, just not as well as it could. 10 seconds view.
And it looks like we've got 2 robots with impaired drive just trying to make it to the end of the fight.
In 2, 1, and a pin will end your fight.
While I'm satisfied with my driving here and the wedge held up great, you can notice that I have troubles driving straight because my front right motor keeps going in and out of function, basically. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And this only gets worse once I lose the back right tire. I end up doing some investigating, and it just looks like one of the connections going to the motor is sort of loose and not a very good connection. I'll have to resolder that. Now let's talk about what we have planned next for Bigfoot. With all the issues I had with the servo horn, I pretty much don't want to put Bigfoot in another event until I can get that problem solved. That's going to involve basically me getting new screws for the servo horn, as well as finding some way so I can get some servo horns that size, because before this I was having so much trouble trying to find servo horns for this size of servo. Everything was either too big or too small. It's also clear that I need to rethink the front of the robot, at least in terms of fighting vertical spinners, because they've always been a problem for me and I've just got my butt kicked too hard. Front-on-front engagements with Ampere and Technetium, neither of them went my way anytime I went front-to-front with them. So also, there's changes I want to make that weren't really a problem in this event, but I think will go along with the other changes I want to make. I'm thinking of redoing the drive and trying out tangential drive and trying out some brushless motors, because I want a way to not have 2 motors on each side, but bring that down to 1 motor without really sacrificing too much reliability. And with me doing that, I'll probably end up having to change how the lifter works. And at that point, changing the front of the robot, changing the drive of the robot, and changing the weapon of the robot, I'm basically going to end up making Bigfoot from scratch. My plans are maybe I'll send Bigfoot to one event once I get some servo horns, and then probably after that I'll be working on a complete redesign of Bigfoot, a whole new version 4. So expect the first part of 2025 to me be focusing on Hodag and a new robot that you'll hear more about soon. With that said, I did bring Hodag to the event, and I originally was going to do a grudge match, but I was impulsive and decided to throw it into the Beetleweight Rumble. And so I'm just going to end the video by showing that Beetleweight Rumble and doing some shout outs. Shout out to Casey from Robot Smashing League for running the event, and all the other volunteers that helped make the event happen. Shout out to Emily of Nacho Robotics for doing the social media for the MRCA and for doing the fight cards. I used the fight cards she made for the event instead of the normal fight cards that I make for these videos. Also, shout out to Ethan, who took pictures of the event. I used his picture for the thumbnail for this video. Shout out again to all the other people that helped make the event happen, because I know like running an event like this is not easy, and it ran smoother than pretty much any other event that I've been to, although RSL typically runs a pretty smooth event.
Spinning up right now, Eviscerator with that big beater bar going. Billy
Trooper
looks like,
to the roof, loses a wheel.
Billy looks like it's still spinning up right now. Oh my, looks like Billy lost a chunk of its wheel there. The camera bot still somehow going.
Ataxia to the roof.
The camera bot's missing a wheel. Oh!
And another one.
Ataxia hitting the wall.
Eviscerator still spinning. Ataxia back up.
Looks like T3 is down. Billy just lost.
If you're looking for something else to watch on screen now, should be Bigfoot's previous event.
Is trying its best.
Hodag looks like, oh,
we have smoke.
Wow, you actually made it. This is all the videos I made this year, or sorry, all the videos I made about Bigfoot this year. So if you made it this far, go down below in the comments and comment Ozark Howler. That is the name of the next robot I'm going to be working on. As a little treat to you for making it all the way to this end of the video, I'm going to tell you about it. It's going to be a FingerTech beater bar, but the whole point is that it's not going to be made out of any 3D printed parts or like custom CNC'd parts, but it's still going to be a fully custom bot. And then I should have that video out in February. I'm hoping to have it fighting in January, but yeah, Ozark Howler going to be the next bot that I'm working on.